This is the Brilliantly Branded podcast, a safe place to have a voice and talk about branding and all the reasons that bring a brand to be brilliantly branded. I am your host, Maria Lucia Romero, a woman empowering other women, and I am welcoming you to this journey of learning and inspiration to build awareness around the world of business and the world of brands. This is the Brilliantly Branded podcast. Our guest in this episode is a woman with a background in the fields of banking, fintech, and venture capital. She shares her journey as a fintech advisor in the European market, offering invaluable insights and expertise. We had a conversation about the pivotal lessons that have shaped her approach to support the startups and scale-ups, as well the challenges and opportunities within the Luxembourg ecosystem. She is Solenne Niedercorn, who gave us more details about her diverse career, from constructing regulated entities to hosting her own podcast called Fintech that have been giving her a lot of good experiences. She is an inspiration to empowering women in finances. After sharing with us her role, reflecting her experiences and her insights on being prepared with the necessary skills, support networks, and cultural shifts needed for women to thrive in these industries. So please grab a cup of coffee or tea and join us in this conversation full of wisdom and inspiration. So welcome one more time to the Brilliantly Branded podcast. So welcome again to the Brilliantly Branded podcast that now is a community for women empowerment through the lens of branding. So what does this mean? So we are supporting and building this adventure to bring all the right tools for make that happen. It's not just say that we are going to empower women or gender in general, but actually to give the tools that would really make us and give that value across this community and this voice that I have been created across the podcast. Because what I firmly believe is, as a women, we have to really support and uplift each other. And that is a part of our reason to exist. So in this podcast, I give a voice to express ourselves, and I invite amazing guests. And today we have a woman. She is a professional and very interesting experience. She is from the world of banking, the world of fintech, and the world of venture capital. She is a fintech advisor in the all European market, and she has been a key in nurturing the growth of startups and scale-ups. So as well, we have something in common because she is a podcaster. She got a podcast. The name of the podcast is FinScale. She's going to talk about that later on. And she's combining actually her passion for finances, for innovation, and experiences in the world of finances that she has been experimented. So let's give a welcome to Solenne Niedercorn and actually ask her to please introduce herself to our audiences and to her audiences as well, because I'm sure that her audiences is going to be listening to this episode as well and sharing a brief overview about her journey. So Solenne, welcome to the Brilliantly Branded podcast, and please could you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Marianne, and thank you very much for the invitation. What you develop is quite interesting, and congratulations for that. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
to present myself, I'm French and Luxembourgish. I have 4 children, 3 boys and a girl, and I'm a trail runner. Professionally, I've been working in the financial sector for more than 20 years. I started, as you said, in banking at UBS and Lombard-Odier, so 2 wealth managers quite known in Switzerland. And then I decided to create my own venture in 2015. Because I wanted to become a tech entrepreneur. And then I worked in a RegTech company for a while. And then I started my activity as independent 4 years ago. Yes, I have different hats, I would say. You mentioned a few of them. So I'm independent director, advising also fintech startup or scale-up fintech companies. I sometimes still some time for children at HSC School of Management, and I'm also a podcaster, as you said, because I launched more than 3 years ago a Film Scale, a podcast dealing with finance and innovation.
Solène, thank you very much for your introduction. It's very inspirational for me, especially because I have been wearing different hats as well in the entrepreneurial world and in the corporate world as well, and a podcaster right now. So I am feeling identified with you. And one of the things that I want to ask you is all these pivotal moments that make really change your career or decide to do what you are doing right now.
Yes. Okay. So I prepared my questions when you asked me this and you sent me the question. I was thinking throughout those 20 years of careers, I guess three important moments were, I would say, key milestones in my career. So the first one was the subprime crisis in 2008 and 2009. So at that time, I was managing assets and managing portfolios for private individuals. And it was a very stressing situation where all the markets went down, very stressing also because clients were stressed, we were stressed. We didn't really understand what was going on. And I remember one moment, one specific moment. It was a client discussion I had with another banker. And I was feeling that I was not doing my job properly. So the performances of the portfolios were very poor. And I mean, amongst all the banks, it was not specifically the bank I was working for, but so I realized after that moment that I was not properly managing stress in downside markets. So I decided to stop managing assets after that moment. So that was one important moment where my role changed. I was a portfolio manager, and then I moved to I was rather an advisor role. So that was the first important moment in my career. Second moment was in 2015. I just gave birth to my daughter, and she was like 3 days old. And the notary called me, and
Congratulations.
yes, and the notary called me. I was in the clinic, and he said to me, "The papers of the creation of your company are ready. You can come and sign them." So I came back from the clinic and directly went to the notary to create that. So I didn't have only a fourth child, I had a fifth child because I created that first venture, and it was for me such like a new baby. So it was a very important moment in my career. And then a last milestone, that was the creation of my podcast. I was working for clients and a very smart entrepreneur that I really appreciate, Gail Hag. And I remember I was in her office working on regulatory stuff. And then we were talking about the fact that I wanted to launch a podcast. And she said to me, now or never. Yes, it was the COVID time at that time. And she said to me, if you don't launch it now, you will never launch it. So do it right now. And at that she said that to me. And then I launched the podcast like 10 days after. And I had already one or two guests recorded. And then I didn't stop for more than 3 years and a half. So I had now, I guess, more than 200 guests on the podcast. And I
Wow.
never stopped since that moment where she told me, go for it.
Yeah, wow. That is very, very inspirational, because actually, I mean, having your baby, having a company, having a podcast, for me, this is like, wow, this is something to admire because actually we are going through the world doing the things that are necessary doing and not thinking, well, look how many things I have been done and have been experimented. And this experience is something that I really appreciate and I love to really celebrate with all the women that I bring to the podcast and let her or each of those to express their lives and their story of life because this is something that really inspire others. We normally sometimes we say, yeah, no, we have been doing some things, but sometimes don't recognize what we are doing until the moment that we express that. And when we express, we recognize, oh, well, yeah, that sounds like a lot. But I have to congratulate you because I love the things that you have been doing. You have been doing a lot. And actually, that connect with my next question. That is your role as a fintech advisor to helping startups and scale ups, and how you really help them to navigate that, and what is these special strategies that you give to them in order for them to grow.
Hmm. So it's complicated to answer with a simple answer because there are so many different cases I've been working on since I started my activity. And each fintech company I've been working with has its own problematic and all needs. The different use cases I've been working on are linked with building new entities in a regulated environment. So it can be building a new fund, building a new payment institution, building an investment firm. And most of the time, what I realize is that first, people don't necessarily get and understand deeply what it means to be regulated. So working in the financial sector is very complex, and more complex, requires a lot of funding. And people have difficulties to project themselves in that environment. So my first, I would say, my main role is to enable them to project themselves as entrepreneurs in that complex world, and help them, for instance, what it means to build a strong governance, what it means to build a risk or a compliance function, etc. So I guess what makes my support relevant is that I've been working in a very regulated company. So when I say UBS is a systemic bank.
Wow.
There are a lot of complexities linked with the
Yes.
fact that you work in a systemic bank. So I guess I work in the most regulated environment that you could imagine in the financial sector. So coming from that world makes me very aware of all the complexities,
Yeah.
and trying to bring it at their where they are is also something that I was able to do because I've been working in a regulated startup, and so I know exactly what it means to build a tech product in a regulated environment. So that's the first point. But what I realized more and more, and not only for new entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs building a new venture, I saw that also with more mature entrepreneurs, is that most of the time, um, people don't really ask themselves the right questions. So when they want to launch a new product, or when they want to launch a new country, they don't necessarily go back to the main question: is that it really answer a need of my client? And I had to do this. It was very interesting for quite a major company that was about to launch a new fintech product for their clients, and I realized that the clients didn't really perform an analysis of their clients' needs. So they were about to launch something because they felt that it was the right moment to launch it, but it was not based on facts, not based on quant and qualitative elements. So we just came back to the basics. I mean, what is your vision? Where you want to go? I mean, the vision, the mission, the values. And then I realized that it was a necessary step for that major entrepreneur to rewire and to go back to the basics. And then it's interesting because a few months after doing this exercise, they decided not to launch that product, but to completely review the regulatory approach and have a more simplistic approach to fulfill properly their regulatory requirements, but also to better serve their clients. So it's very funny because going back to your customer needs seems completely logical, but sometimes people don't do it. Entrepreneurs don't do it, not sufficiently, and yeah. So that's quite interesting.
Well, it's true, Solène. The thing is that sometimes we are in love of our ideas, and actually we forget to really go and ask to the market if this is a product that they need, if this is a product that they fit the market and the necessities of the people outside. And this is part of the things that we have been working in advising startups as well. And these basics, as you well said, knowing who is your customer and how your product is really fitting their necessities is part of the most important things, and sound a bit logical, but it's not that logical, because I have been found exactly the same advising startups. And even worse, if you have a scale up and actually all of a sudden maybe they need to pivot, they need to change, they need to adapt it to what is happening in the markets every day. And at the end, you are working in finances, but as well, you need to know the market. So you need to know about marketing, you need to know about finances, you need to wearing many hats in order to really be present and be this mentor or these advisors for the startups and scale ups. So yes, I have been there and I know what you mean exactly. And the other thing that you have been mentioning is, well, the finance world sometimes is a bit, boring and the things, but not only this, but it's a male dominated industry. And part of the things that we as a women sometimes are struggling is managing these environments, about how you can really show that you are adding value, or more than show, doing what is necessary doing, but actually positioning yourself very well in this environment. So do you have any of those things that probably have been happening to you, where you realize, well, this is the value that I add with my unique perspective as a woman, or something like that? You have had this experience?
I would say it's not, yes, of course, male dominated, but I never suffered in that sense of male domination in that sector. I would say it's a sector with a lack of diversity. So it's also that is problematic, is that people most of the time come from the same universities, and so this is for me the main problem, not only gender position, I mean the gender problem, but the diversity problem is more important in my opinion. The only time where I believe that the fact that I was a female changed one situation is when I was working in banking as a portfolio manager, where I've been discussing with female clients, where I realized that the way they were not treated, but I would say the way their needs were understood by my colleagues were not exactly the same as the way I was understanding those needs. And it's funny because it's a subject that I've been dealing with one guest on my podcast, and the episode is released mid-November. It's an initiative called the Ladies Bank that has been created by a bank called Odo BHF in France. And what she describes, what my guest is describing in that podcast is exactly what I was experiencing as a portfolio manager and with bankers in when I was working in wealth management. So it's not necessarily the same. The needs are the same as males, but I would say the way male bankers understand these needs is not the same way as female bankers. I don't know if it's clear. What I said.
Yeah, it's clear, and actually it's it's a lot of things to talk about that, and going and dig deeper on that. But it's a big topic, and it's a big topic because, as you will say, it's not just about women, it's about gender, and how that general situation have been managed in order to really establish this understand around. Because of course, if you are in a male dominated industry and you wanted to be, for example, understood by another woman, that will be actually one of the things and the way that the sector can be really be more inclusive in understand that probably we as a women wanted to be understood by another woman in
Yeah.
from this point of view. Well, I think it's a lot of things to really dig on that topic.
Yes, if I
uh,
may just, Maya, add something, just 1 minute. In venture capital, it's very critical because when you see the partners in VCs, there are not enough females. And the problem is that female entrepreneurs, you have a lot of female entrepreneurs, but they're not sufficiently funded by VCs. So you have more and more funds that try to have more female partners, or funds that are really dedicated to female entrepreneurs that only invest in founding teams where you have at least one female to ensure that female entrepreneurs are sufficiently funded. And so it's not only in banking, it's in the industry in general.
Yeah, it's in general, and it's true. I mean, this is, yeah, I have been found that as well. And actually, that's the reason why, if you see here the ecosystem in Luxembourg, the number of female founders is very, very, very small. And part of the reasons actually is the moment to go for funding and raising funds. And this is actually some limitations there. That is part of the things that we wanted to address in the community in order to really give the opportunity to know more about that, how to do that, how to express ourselves in front of an investor, a potential investor, to showing all the things and the value that we can add as a women. So I think it's a very important topic. And as I was telling to you, this is something to go and dig deeper, because it's one of the big topics that are now related with female founders and funding. So, although you was talking about your podcast and about this woman that you have been having as a guest, but actually, I have a question that related with the podcast and all the people that you have been bringing, and how really you have been using the podcast. And of course, I know that it's not just the podcast; it's all the things that you are doing, but how you are using that to really give a message related with the fintech landscape or the financial landscape.
Yeah, so it's that's the main objective of the podcast. So the main objective of the podcast is to understand new initiatives and explain why it works and how it works. So it's very vertical and horizontal, meaning that I'm investigating a lot of different verticals in the fintech area. So it's not only fintech, it's fintech, insurtech, fund tech, Contatech, so accounting, that really everything that relates to accounting, and VCs, banking. So it's very wide on the industry, but also interesting to understand themes like one regulation, one technology, one go-to-market strategy, one investment thesis, etc. So my objective is really to cover the entire industry and to cover all the complexities linked with entrepreneurship and innovation in that industry. So it's very interesting because throughout all those discussions, I have a lot of insights and a lot of information from the entrepreneurs themselves. So for instance, I can give you some examples. I've been digging into regulatory navigation and strategy with the founder of Alma, which is a buy now pay later company, and I've been focusing with that CEO on understanding how they manage to propose more and more products, and in parallel with all the licenses they needed to offer those services. So that's one element. Another element that I've been focusing with the CEO of Conto, which is a B2B bank, neobank, is to understand how they manage to expand their services while remaining very customer centric. So it's a company that really answers the client's needs and expanding its services according to their client's needs. So how does it work concretely? What are the different metrics they use? So many things I could mention. Strategic partnerships. I'm at the board of an insurtech called the Ocus platform, and I've been digging into one specific topic, which is a strategic partnership with the CEO to understand how they manage to work with big players, because they're working with a huge player in the finance industry. So, every time I have a new episode, I try to investigate on one specific topic, like also scaling a fund, bringing innovation while funding. It's a
It's a lot
never-ending
of things.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of things. And actually, experimented experience of podcaster, you start to have access to a lot of information. One of the guests that I got on the podcast, actually, she got all the information. She was running a podcast for many years as well. And what she did, it was writing a book based on all the content that she found on the podcast. So actually that impressed me, and I really admire her in certain way, because is getting all this information that is a lot. I mean, you just have been named some of those and put it in a book. It's like, well, it's amazing, but it's a new work to do, and I'm not going to give you more responsibilities. Things that for you to do, no worries. But one other important thing, and talking a little bit more about your personal side, I saw on LinkedIn actually that you were talking about valuable lessons you have been learned through your career. And here we are going to talk about those lessons that really will make the people learn about your experience. So would you mind to share some of those lessons or some of those challenges that probably you have had until now?
Wow, it's very long. So I, I may just concentrate on the lessons learned since I'm independent, because otherwise it's gonna last one more hour. Yeah, I wrote that article because I was independent since 3 years, and I found interesting to share with people following me, so my audience or people reading me on LinkedIn, what I had been facing also. Because via my podcast, I don't talk a lot about myself and what I'm doing, so people don't really know what I'm doing. So I found it interesting to share this with the audience. Yeah, lesson learned is yes, that it's tough to start a new business, a new activity during COVID. That was a big challenge for me. But then, yeah, it worked. It took time, but it worked. Lesson learned is that it's never the moment to postpone. It's when you have a new idea, or when you want to launch something, you just launch it. And this is what I did with several things, like also starting to teach. I had never done this before, but I found it interesting to start and see and test and get some feedback and review and adapt as an entrepreneur with a micro activity. Lesson learned: always stay informed and educated. I do it via my podcast. It's a continuous learning for me. It's a way to get informed about everything. But prior to launching the podcast, I also had a lot of discussion with people, meeting a lot of different persons. I remember, I guess it was 6 years ago, I was still employed. And then I said to myself, every week I have to meet two new different persons to get new insights and learn new things and expand my network.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
more or
That's true.
less.
You mentioned here two important things. You mentioned one that is in your podcast, and that happens to me as well. You are not talking about yourself. You are letting your guests talking about themselves. So now you are my guest. You need to talk a little bit more about yourself. And part of the things is one topic that we approached before. It was actually this diversity in terms of gender. I know that you are part of these directors of boards, different companies. And I wanted to know if you have been found that having a woman as a part of this board is something that really make a difference. So what is the value that actually did apply to the company in terms of diversity?
So it's something that people tell me. you're a woman, you have so much chance right now. It's the moment where a lot of board recruit new female directors. And to be honest, it's it never helped me. It's very difficult to get new board positions, and of course, generally the headhunters have on their how do you say that mission to recruit female directors. But in my case, that was not the point because I always say when I'm in discussion to get board seats that the most important thing for me is to ensure that I have a right positioning in the board, ensuring that there is a good complementarity within the different board members, and not to be the female board member. So I had to refuse some board seats because my feeling is that I was the female. So
What do you mean with that?
they needed to show more diversity. So that's the main critical point was to find a female. And for me, I don't want to be chosen for a board just because I'm a female. So I was very clear with the fact that yes, I'm a female, but I want to bring my expertise. I want to be sitting in a board and be listened. Of course, I say it with diplomacy and not
Yeah.
straightforward like this. But when I have the perception that is the case, I refuse. So yeah, I would say maybe for some women that helps, but generally speaking, when you're at the good place, it's just because you have the right skills. That's my perception and my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I don't think actually, well, I haven't lived that in my life, but if you have had that experience that they just wanted to bring into you to the board just because a female, but of course is because all your experience and all the value that you can add from your point of view as a woman. But yeah, you know, this is a lot of things that are happening sometimes outside that you don't understand, but completely agree with you. It's not because we are just female that need to be included. It's because all the value that we have to add. So I agree with you with that. And the other thing that I saw that you have been part of being a speaker of many events and related with the financial sector. And I would like you to maybe share some advice for people in general that want to be part of this world of finances and fintech sectors based on the speech that you have been done.
As a speaker only, or okay?
Yes. Well, both. I mean, advice.
Yes. Yes, because it's two different positioning, I would say. Yeah, to be part of events, the most important thing is to get in touch with the people organizing the event and propose subjects. Because people are always keen on discovering new subjects. So if you are working on a niche, that is something that you can bring to the table. So that's the way I usually did it. But then now, thanks to the podcast, I'm proposed to participate to events. So that's great. Yes. So as I said, also find your niche, and it's. I mean, to be a speaker or a mentor, but people are generally very specialized in a domain. So it's important to make it better, make it grow, be the person. I don't know in the specialist of sanction screening or the specialist of I don't know insurtech, and then you move in that direction, and then you become the best person as you can in that direction. What else? So yes, generally, I could say to test as much as you can. I remember that I was offered a few years ago the possibility to animate 40 interviews in half a day.
Oh,
That seemed quite
wow.
challenging. And I said to myself, it's amazing because it's 5 minutes per interview. I need to contact the 40 CEOs. It's challenging, but I make a try and I will see. And then you can find the interviews when you Google my name. It's not so bad, I would say, but it was, I didn't know if I could make it, and I decided to do it. And then every time I am given the possibility to do new things that I don't know, if I can make it, then of course I do it, and I work on it to make it happen. And if it's poor, then I learn lessons and I try to improve the second time. If I like it, then I try to do it another time. And if I don't like it, I don't do it again. Yeah.
Yeah. But how though? I mean, can you give me more details about these 40 interviews? You did 40 interviews
Yeah.
in how? I mean, what did you do with these interviews? Is that already in your podcast or no?
So it was in the domain of fintech, of course. So it
Yeah.
helps. But I needed to contact the 40 CEOs and ensuring that each interview was qualitative, because I didn't want to ask the same questions. So, for instance, there was one CEO that just raised around 10 million euros, and I wanted to understand specifically on those 10 million what was the objective. Another one who had a new, launched a new product, how they managed to do it, and it was very challenging because 5 minutes is very short. So I
Yes,
had to
I can
ensure that
imagine.
all these interviews were efficient, straight to the point, and I needed to also contact the CEOs to ensure that they would feel at ease, and it was filmed. It was a very hard challenge, but I mean, I did it. And I'm not a journalist. For journalists, it's certainly easier, but for me, as a former banker, it was a huge challenge.
Yeah, but I think even for journalists, this is not easy task to do, and wow, it's something to really admire, and admire you, because it's not only that now I can realize what you have more than 200 episodes in your podcast. I'm arriving to my 30. I'm so happy. Yeah, this is something to celebrate because I started podcast just 6 months ago, and I am delivering episodes every week. And all the things that you just said, is you need to go and research and see what is the person are doing and how you can really build an interview around that. So this is not something easy. And I think that people can realize that and appreciate that all the work that you and I are doing in order to really have this voice. So, well, Solenne, thank you very much for all the things that you share with us. I want to invite people, or maybe be even better if you can invite them to listening to your podcast, where they can find you. If you can share that with us right now, please.
Of course. Yeah. Where they can find me? Yeah. So generally LinkedIn, Twitter. I generally answer when I get personalized LinkedIn direct message. Same for Twitter. And I have one website for the podcast, Finske.business. And the easiest way is LinkedIn, I guess.
Well, thank you very much, Solenne, for your time. It was so happy. I'm so happy to having you here and knowing all the things and experiences that you have been shared with us. Thank you very much, Solenne.
Thank you very much, Maria, for the invitation. See you soon.
See you. We hope you have been inspired by this content and join us for future episodes of the Brilliantly Branded podcast. We will continue exploring the power of branding and the stories behind successful brands. And remember, if you know a woman who has built a successful brand with a unique approach and a story to share, please refer them to our podcast. We would love to learn from their experiences and share their story with our listeners. Stay tuned for most episodes of Brilliantly Branded, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, on our YouTube channel for more branding insights and women empowerment. Until the next episode, ciao ciao.